right, everybody, I'm back. Gonna be back. And I do want to switch gears, and I do want to talk a little bit of college hoops. Because it's late February, the tournament is coming, March is basically here. We're, 3 weeks away from Selection Sunday, which seems absolutely inconceivable to me. And we had chaos on Sunday. The biggest game of the weekend, the biggest story of the weekend had nothing to do with a result. It had nothing to do with a win, a loss, of this or that. And it had everything to do with the slap/punch/ whatever you want to call it, heard around the world involving Juwan Howard, the Michigan Wolverines, Greg Gard, the Wisconsin Badgers. And so let's talk a little about it. Let's break it down, and let's just kind of discuss what could happen going forward as I record here Sunday night. We don't know what is going to happen to Juwan Howard. By the time you guys and girls listen on Monday, you may have an idea of what has happened to Juwan Howard. Is it a lengthy suspension? And I think there are some people, I disagree, which we'll discuss in a minute, that I think that people think Juwan Howard should get fired. And so it's really kind of ironic how all of this went down. Because I think a lot of you know, I watch a lot of college hoops. I try to watch as much as I can. I'm obviously going to talk college hoops on this show. I have to be engaged and informed. And this was the one time that I was not watching live. So I was going in to host Fox Sports Radio on Sunday afternoon. Buddy George Reister, great host, former NFL player. And as the game is winding down, I said, you know what? I got to take a shower. I got to get out of here. I got to get to studio. So once the game is very clearly out of hand, I go ahead, I hit the showers, literally and figuratively, hit the showers, and I come out, and I have a text from George and our producer, and it says, well, I guess we're talking about Juwan Howard today. And I said, Juwan Howard, what are you talking about? Like, one, we rarely talk college hoops on national radio, especially before March. And two, like, that was a terrible game. Why would we talk about that? And so he sends me the video, and I said, oh, my goodness gracious, what do we have here? So let's talk about what happened. Let me give you guys and girls a little bit of context because I know a lot of you saw it live. I think most of you have most of the facts, but I do think it is kind of worth just kind of reiterating what happened, why it happened, why Juwan Howard threw a slap or a punch or whatever you want to call it, and then who's to blame, who's right, who's wrong, who's justified, and what now happens to Juwan Howard. And so as a little bit of background, obviously, again, Michigan and Wisconsin are playing on Sunday. Wisconsin is potentially closing in on a Big Ten title, and Michigan is very much struggling this year. Last year, they win the Big Ten regular season. They win the Big Ten. They don't win the tournament. They win the Big Ten regular season. They make the NCAA tournament, of course. They're a number 1 seed. They make the Elite Eight, and it's this great story. And I would say overall, I think Juwan Howard, in my interactions with him, has seemed like a very kind of gregarious, nice, friendly guy. Now, it's worth noting he did have a dust-up with Mark Turgeon late last year in the Big Ten tournament, but for the most part, every time that you hear him speak, you can tell how much he loves the kids, how much he loves being a college basketball coach, and he's a guy that I desperately would love to get on this podcast, not because of what happened on Sunday, but because I think, for the most part, I've enjoyed kind of seeing him as a college basketball coach. But the game's getting late, and as the game gets late, it's completely out of hand. Wisconsin's up by double digits. We're under a minute to go, and Wisconsin decides to hit not only their backups in, but we're talking about walk-ons at this point. We're talking about late in the game, guys that don't play, get them their 30 seconds of shine before the game ends. And so as the Wisconsin guys get in, Juwan Howard decides we're still going to keep full court pressing. We're still trying to make this game respectable. We're still trying to this. We're still trying to that, whatever. Ball goes out of bounds. Wisconsin's trying to get the ball past half court. I'm sure, as most of you know, in the college game as well as the NBA, you have 10 seconds to get the ball past half court, and if not, it's a turnover. And so when the ball goes out of bounds, what Greg Gard realizes is, wait a second, the way that the rule book is written, we only get 10 seconds to get the ball past half court, but if I call a timeout, I can get a fresh 10 seconds to give us more time to get the ball past half court. Once we get the ball past half court, the game is over. So Wisconsin calls a timeout, kind of groups their walk-ons, and Greg Gard even said after the game was over, like, look, these guys aren't on the court. They don't know what's going on, and it was my obligation to make sure that they knew what was going on and to give them those extra few seconds. Well, Juwan Howard was not happy with that timeout, and as the game goes final, this is where the dust-up happens. They are walking towards the layup line, or they're walking towards the handshake line. And thankfully, by the way, since all this happened, we've gotten a little bit of video with audio, and you can hear Juwan Howard is not happy as he is walking by Greg Gard. You hear him say something to the effect of, I won't forget this SH asterisk. You could take a guess as to what he said. The reference to the fact that Greg Gard called a timeout with under 10 seconds left. And so Greg Gard kind of grabs him and says, like, wait a second now? How are you going to blame me when you're the one that's pressing. But before he can even get that out, Juwan Howard kind of pulls away. As soon as that happens, you can see a bunch of people come in. And then as the two coaches are separated, Juwan Howard takes a swing, and what you can either call it a punch, you can call it an open-handed slap, whatever it was, but he takes a swing, it hits the Wisconsin assistant coach Joe Krabenhoff, and a melee is broken out, and from there we have kind of all sorts of, from there it just becomes the crazy thing. And so to me, as I said, I'm glad that I did not see this in real time, because it allowed me to get all of the facts. It allowed me to kind of process my thoughts, and it allowed me to kind of get a clear view of what happened, who's to blame, how much blame should go around, and frankly, what should happen to Juwan Howard. And so in terms of who's to blame, to be clear, I'm not making excuses. Let me even backtrack. I think there's two separate conversations to be had. One, does Juwan Howard have any right to be mad about the fact that Greg Gard called the timeout? And from there, what I will say is definitively this. The answer is 1,000% no. We've all played college basketball. Well, we haven't all played college basketball, but we've all played basketball. We've all played sports. We all know the unintended, the unwritten rules of sports, right? You don't bunt when you're down, when a pitcher's throwing a no-hitter just to break up a no-hitter. You don't, if a team is taking a knee, you don't send your defensive lineman full speed ahead when the quarterback is just trying to take out a knee to run the clock. And in basketball, when you put in the walk-ons, that is the winning team sign. The game's over. We're just trying to get our guys reps. Now, Juwan Howard has every right to put on the full court press, but he has zero right to be mad when Greg Gard decides to call a timeout. What I would also say, and to be clear, to be abundantly clear, because I don't want this to be misconstrued, I'm not excusing Juwan Howard here. But what I would also say is this. I don't think that we can give Greg Gard a complete pass either for what happened that led to Juwan Howard swinging at the guy. Not excusing Juwan Howard, not saying it's okay. All I know is this. We can sit up here on our high horse and say there's no excuse, there's no this, there's no that. When somebody puts their hands on you, you are going to react a certain way. Now, you would hope that Juwan Howard wouldn't take a swing. But guys and girls, we've all done it. We've all been in a situation. We've all been wherever. When somebody puts their hands on you, what's the first reaction? You either pull away or you shove them or you this or you that. And that was what was kind of weird about the Juwan Howard situation was that he didn't react right away. And then whatever it was, 4, 5, 6 seconds later, that's when he takes the swing. So to me, if you're Juwan Howard, you can't be mad about the full court press and you can't take a swing at the guy either. But I also understand how in a moment when somebody grabs you, I can understand why you'd be frustrated. So to me now, I think the interesting conversation is what happens from here, right? What happens from here? The Big Ten has released a statement. We're aware. We're investigating. Michigan has released a statement. We're going to kind of stand down and see what the Big Ten decides to do. What I would say, and maybe it's unpopular, I believe that Juwan Howard should get a lengthy suspension. I do not believe that Juwan Howard should be fired for this incident. And maybe some of you are disagreeing, some of you are driving around, and some of you are getting mad. If that makes me a bad guy because I don't believe that Juwan Howard should get fired, forgive me. First of all, I hate this whole thing of, well, if I put my hands on somebody at my job, I'd be fired. Listen, can we stop with the, well, at my job, it's like this. Every job is a little bit different. Every job has a different set of standards and protocols. And while it's never okay to take a swing at a guy, Juwan Howard's situation is different from yours. Okay, so can we stop with the, if I put my hands on somebody at the job, I'd be fired. Yeah, guess what? Every job is different. A preschool teacher can take a nap on the job. I don't know if preschool teachers do, but a preschool teacher can take a nap on the job. You can't take a nap on the job if you're a bus driver, right? If you're an NFL football coach, you can swear and curse like a sailor. You can't curse and swear like a sailor if you're a preschool teacher or a kindergarten teacher. So every job has different sets of standards and protocols, and I'm not excusing Juwan Howard, but please do not compare it to your job. Beyond that, what I would also say is what I always say in moments like this. I don't believe that somebody should lose their livelihood over one bad moment, one bad situation, one bad circumstance. Now, I know that there was an incident with Maryland last year. You can't say this is the only time that Juwan Howard has been involved in this, but I would hate to see his entire career come to an end because of this coaching college basketball, in the same way that I would hate to see somebody's career come to an end because of a bad one sentence or two sentences that they say during a radio interview or podcast. The same way that I would hate to see somebody's career come to an end for a bad tweet or a bad Facebook post. I don't believe that we should live in a world where we just fire everybody and ruin everybody's put an end to everything every time everybody makes a mistake. And by the way, it isn't just Juwan Howard. I've said this for years. I believe that one, and I don't want to compare apples to apples, and I know these are extreme examples, and I'm not saying one is the same as the other. But I've talked about it on this show before. Whatever it is, whoever it is, I don't like the idea that somebody should lose a job, lose a livelihood over one tweet, one moment, one this, one that. I believe people should be able to seek forgiveness. I believe people should have a punishment and accept it. And once that punishment happens, I believe they should be able to move on with their lives. Now, I also believe that each individual employer has a right to do what they deem is best for their employees. And if Michigan determines that they can't keep Juwan Howard, then that's completely on them. But from my perspective, I would hope for a very lengthy suspension, maybe some sort of anger management thing because this isn't his first time, but I don't want to see him lose his job. I don't want to see him lose his livelihood in the same way that I talk about it with all of these other guys and girls that have a bad moment in sports. I've talked about it before, and I'm not comparing one to the other. But Ray Rice, I've said it. We all know what Ray Rice did. I didn't believe that because Ray Rice did what he did, once he went through the legal system, once he took whatever punishment he had, I was fine if an NFL team decided to sign him. Now, they didn't because he was kind of the back end of his career, but I had no problem if Ray Rice, and to be clear, I'm not comparing what Juwan Howard did to what Ray Rice did, but it's the same thing. Michael Vick, I've told this story many times. My mom's a huge animal advocate. She thinks he should be behind bars for the rest of his life. Well, guess what? I disagree. He served his time. He did his, he served his punishment, and he should be allowed to move on with his life. And again, not comparing Michael Vick to Juwan Howard, but what I am saying is I believe that Juwan Howard should have his moment and serve his punishment and be allowed to continue. So in terms of the punishment, I don't believe he should be fired, but I do think a very lengthy suspension should be coming. First of all, 5 games left in the regular season. Obviously, from there, the Big Ten tournament, and then from there, any type of postseason. If the Big Ten said, from now until the end of the season, you cannot coach, I would be okay with it. Because first of all, to me, it's almost like when a team takes a self-imposed tournament ban in a year where they're not going to make a tournament, go ahead and go over the top, say you're done for the season. That allows him to step back, take time to reflect, and it really doesn't hurt a team that's not going to make the NCAA tournament anyway. But it's very clear that you cannot act like this, and there has to be a punishment that fits the action that Juwan Howard took part in. So to me, if I was the Big Ten, I'd say you're done for the season. You can't coach the 5 remaining regular season games. You can't coach in the Big Ten tournament, and you can't coach in the postseason. If you want to just limit it to 5 games plus the Big Ten tournament, and if Michigan makes a postseason, that's fine. But to me, that's where I'm at. Give him a lengthy punishment. If you deem so, go ahead and say, you know what, you also have to do some sort of, anger management or whatever. And by the way, maybe I'm 100% wrong. As I said a minute ago, if Michigan as a university deems that they need to punish Juwan Howard further, then that's fine by me. But as I said right now, I believe that Juwan Howard should be punished appropriately. I do not believe he should be fired, but it is a weird, bizarre, crazy story that took over college basketball. And as I've just said a couple times, I believe by the time you listen to this podcast, there's a good chance we know what happened with Juwan Howard.